Hey guys, welcome to the Kevin and King podcast where there's always spoilers. This week we're talking about scary stories to tell in the dark. King, did you like the movie?
Overall, I came out of this movie fairly positive. It was by no means perfect, but yeah, I liked it more than I didn't.
Okay. Well, viewing of the movie because of the people in the movie. We got there and everything, but there was this group of teenagers, I'm assuming that are teenagers, that sat in the back and they talked the whole time. Like, literally, they were just talking. And then they were, like, talking to the movie. And it was the most annoying thing that happened in my entire life. People were literally walking out of the theater because of these teenagers were talking the whole time. I think I saw eight people leave the movie. I should have left, but I wanted to see the movie and I was enjoying it enough to be absolutely annoyed and angry. So I stayed,
Hmm.
but I should have left. But overall, I enjoyed the actual movie, but I don't think I really experienced it how I should have experienced it if they weren't talking the whole time. Like, it would be intense parts where the movie would be silent or very low, and they would just be like
Hmm.
giggling or talking, and it just ruined the whole thing. And so I kind of didn't get the full feel of it, and that kind of messed up everything.
And
But
nobody
yeah,
complained about it or anything.
I don't know if anybody complained. I'm not sure. I should have got up and complained or just went and got my money back and left, but I didn't want to have to go see the movie again because it was a good movie, but it wasn't good enough to be like, okay, I've watched like an hour and 20 minutes of this movie. We should, I want to go back and watch it again. Like, I didn't want to do that. So I
Right.
stayed. I should have complained. But yeah, it was an awful experience.
Sorry to hear that. That sounds pretty awful.
Yeah.
Let's start with the overall story. For some reason this takes place in 1969, and I'll be honest, I do not know why. Or no, sorry, 1968.
Yeah.
1968, small town Pennsylvania, I believe.
Yeah, it was definitely 68 because I was like, "Oh my god, that's 1 year before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood."
Which is weird because the books were written in the 80s, and, you know, there wasn't really anything in this movie that necessitated 1968, except for all the Vietnam shit and the Nixon shit, which I
Yeah.
do not understand the reason for that either. Seemed odd. Anyways, so a group of misfit teens uh, all go out on Halloween, have a couple adventures, decide to go to a haunted house, pick up this book, and then the book comes to life, sort of. It was incredibly cliche. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, you picked up the haunted thing. Now you're haunted.
But I mean, I, so the whole beginning of the movie to when they got up to that part and everything I loved, it made me feel like I was watching Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town or something like that. And I don't know if my mind was just fully in the mood for a movie like that because I love Hocus Pocus, love it. Watch it, try to watch it every year for Halloween and everything. But it had that kind of
Uh-huh.
same essence to it.
Yeah, I get that. I don't have quite that same love for Hocus Pocus. I mean, like, I think it's a enjoyable movie, but it's not. It doesn't have that much nostalgia for me. But did you ever watch the Goosebump movies with Jack Black that came out a couple of years ago?
I watched the first one. I don't. He's not in the second Goosebumps, is he? Because I don't think I ever watched the
I don't know.
second
I didn't
one.
watch it either.
Yeah, I don't think I watched the second one. You know, really care that much. But I watched the first one. I
Yeah, but it seemed to have a lot of like instead of creating a story about just one of the Goosebumps stories because they're typically pretty short, like creating a narrative that you can just throw in the stories where they seem most appropriate. Is that correct?
from are you talking about the Goosebumps or how this one did it?
Well, that's how this one did it, but is that also how Goosebumps did it?
If I remember, yeah, they kind of just yeah. It wasn't like I think in the Goosebumps movie they weren't like telling specific stories of it. I think there was specific story aspects that came to life as the movie went on, but it didn't like tell that story of that certain character. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It just kind of borrowed the monsters or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I saw a lot of complaints about that online, how a lot of them wanted like an anthology TV series instead of just uh trying to force it all into one movie, which I understand. I thought it was fine, but I guess like if you had certain expectations going in, that would be disappointing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. Like as you said that people would want it to be a TV series. I personally think I would like this better as a TV series because you can expand on the kids more or they're I guess they're not kids, they're all like seniors or something, right? In high school. You can
I think they're juniors and Tommy and Ruth are seniors.
okay. Yeah,
But
you could
I don't know if it ever explicitly says.
yeah, because at first I was like, man, they look really young. I mean, they look old for what I thought, the age that I thought they were, and then it kind of went along, and I was like, oh, they're in high school, they're like seniors or juniors or something. But I feel like if it was a TV show, maybe it could have expanded on the main characters a little bit more, and you could go,
Uh-huh.
you could have given more about. I like the characters those kids, but I still don't know much about them. And with how the movie ended up ending, you're kind of like, oh, they have to make another movie if I want to learn about these other characters, which I don't know if
Right.
they'll make.
I think the way the people I saw complaining about it in reviews were wanting an anthology. They wanted like every episode to be an entirely like separate from each other. It's just all
Oh,
scary stories, none of them interconnected, or at least most of them not interconnected.
so it would kind of be
Which
like what's that TV show on Netflix?
Black
Black
Mirror?
Mirror. Yeah, Black Mirror. So,
Yeah, I guess that's what they were looking for. Personally, I'm fine with them doing it this way. I mean, this like a lot of the scary stories in the book are like a page or two long. So, trying to pad that out to a half hour or an hour long show every week seems like it'd be kind of exhausting because they aren't set up to work on that long of a scale. They're supposed to be short and punchy.
yeah, I think how they did it well to be able to put the stories into a movie, or even if they did a TV show or anything, and tell that story. Because even with like the first one, like Harold, it just would have been kind of like Jeepers Creepers or something. Like I, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, Harold's definitely one that works better on a very brief time frame.
Yeah,
One more thing though. Why the fuck are juniors in high school trick-or-treating? It's a big costume. Like, it's specifically so that they can, like, get back at Tommy. But, like, they've
they
been
were.
doing this every year, so that means that every year prior to this, they were also trick-or-treating and not pranking him.
Yeah, that's what made me at the beginning. That's what made me think they were in middle school. It's like, oh, they're middle schoolers about to go in high school, about to be ninth graders. I was like, oh, okay, this is their last year. But yeah, they've been doing it
Y-
forever.
Right, it just, like, as far as I know, people weren't trick-or-treating in high school when they were like in the 60s. Like I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was kind of weird. Them going to see them going drive theater was fun, which kind of reminded me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because uh, uh, Cliff Booth lives behind a drive-in movie theater. It's just like, remember these guys?
Yeah. It was weird seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the week before, and then watching this movie
Uh,
because I was like, "There's some really weird parallels that could be happening here."
so they get the book. Stella starts reading it. Um, Tommy straight up tries to murder him.
Bro, that kid's terrible person. Terrible.
Like he was like he was a Stephen King level like future serial killer bully. Yeah, and it does play into why he's so excited to go to Vietnam. He gets a chance to kill people. A lot of serial killers volunteered for Vietnam. Most of them didn't see action, but some of them did. But yeah, that gets fucked up.
That's a story for next time because I don't know anything about that. We should do an episode on that.
All right.
Serial killers wanting to go to war.
Oh, there's quite a few. Yeah, but let's stick with this. Um, but he locks them in a basement that was famous for having a woman locked in the basement that she couldn't get out of. Like, he straight up tried to kill him.
Yes. Yes, he did.
But I'm not really sure why Sarah let them out. Like, I guess she just wanted to play with him a little bit more. Yeah, Stella takes Ramon home with him because his Tommy bashed up his car and wrote some slurs on it and everything. And also, fuck that sheriff, dude. Like, I mean, it makes sense for him to be that kind of guy in 60s America as a person of authority, but I was not expecting that because I mean, usually in like these kind of teen movies, the sheriff's just like, "Oh yeah, sure, kids, the book came to life, whatever." But he's usually not like a racist douchebag. But they just fully went with it on this one.
Yeah, I couldn't like at first I was like, is he super racist or is he just like knows that if there's that type of person in town, like a and like it would cause trouble, and he was just being super serious because he didn't want that trouble to occur because he knows how racist the town is. But I guess as it
Oh,
went
so you mean
on,
like maybe he was trying to protect him, like by telling him to get out of here?
yeah, and I think he
Like that? Okay.
yeah, that's what I felt at first, and as it went along, it kind of made. As it went along, it kind of took away that he wasn't racist to me. I mean, maybe a little bit, but he was more gung ho for Nixon and Vietnam and stuff, and he wanted. He looked down upon defectors and stuff, and he kind of knew what that kid was doing. And I
No,
like,
he didn't know at first. At first, it was straight up racism. It's just
eh,
like, we don't like your kind around here, boy.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, he was like, there was definitely, they definitely brought that aspect of racism in to the movie, and I mean, it was 1968. It was still very prominent, racism and just all that stuff going on, even if they were all going to war together.
Right, but I'm just saying, I'm kind of surprised they did it in a movie that I'm assumed is aimed at mostly young teens,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, if I had to guess.
It's a very PG-13 movie that they definitely, if they made this movie R, like rated R, I think it would have been very, very good. Like, I think they could have done a lot with it if they made it rated R.
Yeah, but I think they still pulled off quite a bit for keeping it PG-13.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
some of those visuals were fantastically horrifying.
Yeah, they did. Like, there was plenty of times, and there's one specifically when we get to it that I was just like, wow, I'm actually scared.
Right.
It made me feel something.
Oh, one other thing about the lead up is that Tommy gets drunk without ever drinking. Did you notice that?
I mean, I guess it just implies that he was drinking sometime.
Right, but I mean, like, is that so that like when they put this on, well, I don't know if they can put it on like Nickelodeon or some shit, but like if they put this on a channel that's aimed for kids to keep them from having to edit that out later, like, because then like the mom just straight up is like, "You're drunk, you're drunk."
Yeah,
Like, I was having a good
I
time.
think you're right because if it was PG-13, then it would if they put that into the movie, then it would be specifically saying that this kid was drinking and driving, and the and they were advocating for that, or like not. You shouldn't show 13-year-olds that because they're impressionable and they'll end up doing that later on. So I feel like you're on to something right there with that.
I guess, but he is also the antagonist. Like, it's I'm betting it's something weird about like putting it on TV or like one of the like streaming services aimed at kids, but it seemed weird like watching it. It was just like he seems to be getting drunker, but like I've never seen him drink anything. Like not even like out of a plastic cup or anything. He's just like he does not consume liquid. But
Yeah. Could
then he starts like slurring his words and like kind of stumbling. It was
yeah, could it be
real weird to me. Like there's scary elements, but there's not uh like intense gore or violence. There's not enough swearing for that to have triggered it, and nothing sexually explicit in any way that I can remember.
yeah.
So
I don't know
I'm
then.
not sure, but I don't think they pulled anything that would have flagged him.
I don't know. But I mean, that's a really good point. I didn't catch that, but thinking back on it, yeah, I don't see any of that.
Yeah, but anyway, so he gets back to the house, and he had previously during the day like taken a baseball bat to Harold, and then he gets back to the house. His mom's bitching at him about drinking, as a mom does, and he also neglected to go take his eggs to a neighbor, so now he has to do it at midnight. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
I feel like the neighbor would be more annoyed to get them at midnight than to not get them at all.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna be honest. If my mom, even if my mom, dad, anybody asked me to do that, I would have said I did it, and I would have not done it because that is terrifying. Of what he was
What,
doing.
walking through a cornfield at night?
Yes, by yourself with no light. Like I know there was like moonlight and stuff, but there was no light out there. It was dark. Like it was
Well,
dark,
yeah, but
dark.
I mean, he all like it at least implies that he grew up in that environment, so probably wouldn't be that surprising or new to him to have to deliver eggs at night or anything else.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know how comfortable I'd be out there.
I wouldn't be comfortable.
Um, so in the book version, it takes place in Arizona. I'm not sure why, but there's this farmer, and he's got this really amazing farm. Like it's the best anywhere around. And people ask him what his secret is to having such good crops, and it's because he spent months working on this gruesome scarecrow. Like the arms and legs are like 6 feet long, and the the head he spent months carving out of a pumpkin, and it's like really gruesome and horrifying. And then he's got these two shithead neighbors, Harold, and I don't remember the name of the other one. Uh, but they've got terrible crops because they don't put in the effort, and they're pissed that this other farmer has such better crops than them. So one day they steal that scarecrow, And the farmer's distraught. He's asking around everyone, all of his neighbors. He's like, "Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Does anyone know where my scarecrow is?" And he goes to them and he's like, "Hey guys, have you seen my scarecrow?" And they're like, "Nope." And he's like basically pleading with them. He's just like, "Please, I need my scarecrow back. I'm gonna lose everything." And they're like, "Wow, sucks to be you." Like just real dickheads about it. So that night, like the farmer goes home, they go inside, and that night they sleep in the same room, which is weird, but whatever. But they can't fall asleep because they can't get the image of this horrifying mask out of their head, or the horrifying scarecrow head out of their minds. So they take it out of the closet and they smash the pumpkin head, and then they're able to go to sleep. But in the middle of the night, they're woken up by the scarecrow coming into their room, and it's really creepy because like I said, the scarecrow's got 6 foot long arms and 6 foot long legs, so it's just kind of weaving into their rooms. The brothers try to bolt. The scarecrow grabs Harold, and the scarecrow has no head at this point. The other brother gets out of the house and is running down the road. And he looks over his shoulder, and the scarecrow's ganging on him, and it must have been horrifying, or it would have been horrifying because, like, it's this gangly 6 foot long, like, straw man coming after you. Except he notices now it's got a face that looks a lot like Harold. Ugh. And then he stabs the scarecrow with a pitchfork. The scarecrow grabs the pitchfork and stabs him back. And you can see straw poking out of his chest where he was stabbed. And then he starts, spitting out and choking on hay, and hay starts coming out of the sleeves of his Letterman jacket. That shit was pretty fucking horrifying.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good way to make a part not gruesome, but at the same time gruesome. Like, they didn't have blood
Right.
and guts coming out, but they had you feel his pain and what he's going through and not having to put the really gory, nasty stuff into the movie.
Yeah, there is little to no gore in this at all, which is one thing I have to commend it for, because it pulled off most of its scary moments completely goreless, and I
Yeah,
thought that was pretty incredible.
yeah, they rely like 100% on suspenseful terror, and I think they did it really well. Even with how my viewing went of the movie, there was still
Uh,
suspenseful terror the whole time throughout, and I thought that was really good.
yeah, definitely. So this is by director Andre Ovredale. I'm not really sure how to say that name with those accent marks, but he did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, Troll Hunter, which has been really highly regarded, and uh, and Future Murder, which I don't know anything about, but Troll Hunter was really well known, and I think The Autopsy of Jane Doe was pretty well liked as well. I don't know much about that one, but yeah, this guy's got a few uh, really good movies under his sleeve, uh, so I thought choosing him as the director was a wise decision.
Yeah, I thought this was done. I thought he did very well with this movie, and especially the editing that he had to do it with, and just everything. I thought he
Hmm.
did really well. I'm excited to see if he does another movie of this and what it would be.
Yeah, or if he decides to do something else, I imagine that'll be pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know he made those movies that you said. Like he wrote them, or are those all adaptations of other movies?
I think he wrote Troll Hunter. Yeah, he wrote Troll Hunter.
Is it?
That appears to be. Oh, looks like he might be remaking Troll Hunter too. Oh no, looks like someone else is actually remaking it, but he gets a writing credit because he wrote the original. So also the next morning, like Stella's all suspicious because she read the story about Tommy being attacked by the Scarecrow, uh, and then she and Ramon go out to Tommy's house and see the sheriff there. Ramon wants not to be there because he's already dealt with the sheriff enough. He has no intention of continuing to deal with him. Did nobody else notice the Tommy's Letterman jacket? Like, was it just Stella, or were they just not concerned with it? Because like she's like, that's Tommy's jacket. That's the jacket Tommy was wearing, but nobody else seems to care. Nobody's like marked that off as like a crime scene or anything. They're just like hanging out, like the cops are just hanging out by the house, and they've got free reign to just go up to the uh, scarecrow and look at it.
Yeah, I'm not sure at all. Maybe they just didn't think that he would be in the cornfield, or they weren't doing a search for him yet. Not sure.
I guess. But she beelined it for it, so I'm assuming that's because she read the story. Uh, Still seemed a little weird to me.
Yeah.
But um, also, what happened to Harold? Like the scarecrow that turns Tommy into a scarecrow. Like, does he just disappear, job all done, or like, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I guess she just he gets to go to his resting place, and now Tommy is the new Herald.
Yeah. Not a big matter, so I won't dwell on it too much. But it did seem kind of odd that like we don't. I mean, as far as I know, we didn't see Harold again after that. Uh, so maybe you're right. Big Toe. Um, do you remember? Well, you said you hadn't read these books before, right?
Nope, didn't even knew that. I didn't even know they existed until this movie came out.
Yeah, I've got quite a few memories of these, and this one was one that was really effective if somebody was telling the story to you, like either reading the book or just like had it memorized. Because a lot of the stories in the book aren't original stories by the author. A lot of them are uh, just American folklore that have been around for uh, forever or decades to centuries. That that he then adapted, and with the help of um, what was his with the help of Stefan Gamel, the illustrator, made horrifying illustrations for this book, um, which is part of the reason it was so effective because they were indeed pretty scary stories. But then you've got these haunting images that stuck with a lot of people that grew up reading them, um, and also got the book a lot of flack uh, from parents and organizers because it they just thought it was too horrifying for the kids. Me, I've had these books since I mean I think I was first read these stories when I was like 4, and yeah, they're quite something when you're a child, but like I don't remember ever feeling like I don't remember having nightmares about him, but I know a lot of people at least said they had nightmares because of these books. And The Big Toe is one of the stories I remember the most because when you had someone reading it to you, the climax at the end is very effective. And what these books really did well was the building suspense, and like it it starts off slow and then it speeds up, speeds up, speeds up, and then bam, like has that moment at the end, which I think this movie did pretty well in adapting for the screen. Um, I know some people said there were too many jump scares, but I don't really remember any jump scares being very egregious in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think there was like that. I mean, there was jump scares, but they were kind of you kind of knew they were coming, for the most part, especially after you see the first story, how they kind of do the first story. When they did
Hmm.
Harold, you kind of get the sense of okay, this is how they're going to do it through the rest of them. So I didn't
Hmm.
notice like too crazy of jump scares, but I mean the one in the big toe, it definitely got me. I didn't think that was going to happen, so I thought that one was very appropriate to have.
Mm. Yeah, like I don't think they really did this particular story that much justice based on the book version, but the book version is also kind of fucking stupid. So like it works, but it's got a really dumb premise. In the book version, a kid's out digging in his backyard, finds a massive toe, uh, and he takes it inside to show his parents, and his mom's like, "Wow, look at how meaty and juicy this toe is. Let's put it in the stew." And so they all put it in the stew. The father cuts it into three portions so they each get it and they each eat it. And then that night, he hears this wailing from out in the garden of "Where's my big toe?" And like it keeps getting closer and closer. Like it's in the garden, then it's like near the house, and then it's right outside his window, and then you hear it in the house, and then you hear it in the hallway, and then you hear it in the room, and like he's got the covers over his head, and he's just trying to keep from getting getting caught. Uh, and then well, the way it was done to me was either my dad or my brother was reading the story to me, and right at the end, they just grab my toe and be like, "You took it," uh, which pretty fucking horrifying for a 4 year old, but very effective. Uh, but in this version, they don't have as much build up, which I think they should have. Like when Augie finally stops being a dipshit after he eats the fucking toe. Um, like Stella's on the other end of the radio being like, "Don't eat anything," and he's like, "Oh, this mysterious crock pot full of stew. I'll just start eating cold refrigerated stew." It's just like, Augie, what are you doing, man? And he's just like spooning it into his mouth, like doesn't put it in a bowl, doesn't heat it up, doesn't do anything, like just this stew that I've never seen before. And also the meat in the stew looked like shit. Uh, and then like once he realizes that like he has fucked up, uh, like you only hear the woman say like "Where's my big toe?" like once, maybe twice, and he hides under the bed. Like I just think they needed more build up for that one.
Yeah, they definitely could have done a lot more with build up. I think they relied a lot on. We knew that he was eating the stew with a nasty zombie toe in it, and that was kind of like grossing us out. And I think they thought, okay, we'll just gross him out this time instead of try to like build it as well. But at the same time, like even the story that you told, like the original one, it's kind of like a dumb story for people to be like, oh, this big toe, let's cut it up. It's the same thing. Like, how would they have incorporated a bigger build up? Like, I can't think of anything. So maybe this is the only thing that they were like, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but still, I'm just saying like the effective part of the original story is he hears this voice in the distance, and then it's getting closer and closer, and there's really nothing he can do about it. So he's just got this dread that's coming after him, and and all he can do is hide under the covers. Whereas like in the story, it's just like uh he hears it once and he's like, "Oh shit, some lady's in my house looking for her toe," runs and hides, and then like you hear her once more, and then the door opens, and then all of a sudden she appears under the bed and drags him under. Uh so like if she had had a little bit more repetition, like a little bit louder every time, a little bit closer every time, I think it would have been more effective.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I This was by far my least favorite like story they told in this movie.
Okay.
But I
Um
think that's because of what you're saying. It didn't have a lot of build up. For me, I kind of thought it was a little dumb, but and I was probably the only aspect I thought was kind of silly in the movie.
Yeah, it's I mean like the initial premise in the book is pretty fucking stupid too. Who just eats toe you find in the garden?
Yeah,
But yeah, this one was kind of weak. Uh Augie just got the Ross end of the deal. So the next one's the red spot. This story is pretty lame in the book. It's kind of matter of fact because it's one of those urban legends of like America, and it's usually told kind of in a boring way, or maybe it's not usually told, but like every time I've read it, it's always been in the boring matter of fact of like this lady finds a spot on her face and like it's a big red spot and she's like, "Damn, I got bit by a spider." And that's the end of it, but this well, I mean that would normally be the end of it, but in this case like the spot keeps growing and then all of a sudden thousands of spiders falling out of her face, which is but however, the picture in the book is truly horrifying. Uh, the the way he drew the face and like the hole in her face and all the spiders crawling out onto the rest of her face, it's gruesome. But the story just isn't told very effectively. In the
yeah,
movie, it's okay.
yeah. I thought it was okay too. I mean, I didn't really think how can you make this story like super scary. I did think that when the spiders actually came out and she was screaming and all of that was happening, like when it got to the climax of the part, I thought it was
Uh-huh.
fantastic because it made you kind of feel like your stuff was on you. It freaked you out, you know, especially if you're scared of spiders or bugs or something. I thought they did really well at illustrating that this was a crazy thing to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that people with arachnophobia would enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, Ruth's behavior throughout the story is a little bit weak, in my opinion. She she really seems fairly blasé about the fact that like this spot is getting fucking huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of feel like her whole character is weak in this movie as well though. Like
Yeah, that's true.
she didn't really have a place with anybody. Like at first she was with Tommy, like supposed to be on a date. Is she supposed to be like the bitchy sister that's mean, and or is she supposed to be a person that kind of turns and becomes one of the group, which she doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
do because when she gets the chance to do that, she kind of still stays in her own little aspect and goes off on her own.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like her kind of character basis was weak all around because of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Just kind of an odd character all around. Uh, although at the beginning when Chuck is fishing those turds out of the toilet, she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "A little privacy, please," and slams the door shut. Man, can you imagine like your younger brother just fishing turds out of the toilet, like trying to figure out why? That'd be so weird.
She was obviously used to him being weird though. It's like she was like, "Oh,
I
that's
suppose
normal." She's like, "That's normal. He's a weirdo."
that's a weird thing to call normal, but yeah. So yeah, it's a gross story. And like if you're really triggered by spiders, it's probably going to be pretty gruesome, especially with that one spider leg like sticking out at that at well, not at first, but like when she starts to get freaked out, like that one spider leg wiggling out of her cheek. That'd be incredibly unpleasant. But when they're running up to find her, because I guess because of reading the book, they know she's in the bathroom, but they go into the first floor bathroom and it's dark and there's like a group of girls just hanging out in there. I don't know if that's a reference to a different story that I haven't read recently, or if that was just like, what was that?
I don't know. I think they were just trying to like illustrate that those girls were making fun of her, but not totally sure.
I don't know why
That's
they'd be down there though. Like why they'd be in the dark doing it.
no idea.
Uh, Anyways, that's probably my least favorite story, just because found that one kind of bland anyway. But like to me, they didn't really deliver in the movie on it either.
Yeah, I can see why you feel that way. Definitely.
All right, so the next we got is based off of the Dream, or in this would probably be called the Red Room. Um, it probably the best sequence in the entire movie. Well, I'd say probably easily the best. There was a couple other parts that I thought were really good, but I think this one definitely takes the cake.
Yeah, it was by far the best scene for me in the movie. Just the intensity of it, the feel that it gave you. It made you feel like you were immersed in it, like you had the panic that he had. It was definitely by far the best scene, and I feel like if they didn't have this scene in this movie and didn't do it so well, that the movie wouldn't have been so good.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. The story it's based off of isn't really all that good comparatively. I like it's one of the weaker stories in the book in my opinion, but how they adapted it into the movie was pretty incredible. Although it does have some like really dumb character logic. Like Chuck's been complaining about this dream he's having about the Red Room, and earlier in the movie he like has that vision of the old lady and the Doberman in a red room. So you think it's gonna be something more like that. And so they go to the hospital and they're trying to get to Sarah's records, and they say that the records are in the red room, which is like records and something department. But, RED. So Chuck's flipping out about it being the red room. And at this point, Tommy's gone, Augie's gone, and Ruth had her encounter with the spiders. You'd think they'd take this shit more seriously, but they're just like, "Come on, Chuck, don't be a pussy. We gotta go." It's just like, why? Why does Chuck need to be there? Why does Chuck need to like have anything to do with anything red at all?
Yeah, it really makes no sense. For them, they should have just been like, okay, you're either going to come with us everywhere that we go, or you don't need to come at all and make sure that you're like totally safe. There's nothing around. You're never around a room. Like it just makes no sense to why they did that. And Chuck's kind of dumb. He should have been like, I'm shittily scared. I shouldn't be here, and I'm going to be smart about it rather than listen to his two stupid friends.
Yeah, Chuck should have been like, "I'm going outside, so I'm literally not in a room at all. Like nobody can call this a room." I mean, like I'm sure the Cerebellos would have found a way to get him anyways, but like, come on, man, make an effort.
Yeah, definitely. That part was really weak, but I don't know. That was the only weak part of the whole dream sequence that I thought there was.
Yeah, visually and everything, it was very well done. So this is also the only one that doesn't explicitly show the story being written down in Sarabella's book. It's like they're playing the recording of her voice as she's essentially interrogated by her brother trying to gaslight her. and then she just like a flip switches in her mind, and instead of like saying no, no, I didn't do it, I was trying to warn them about the poison and everything, she's just like, okay, you want me to be the monster, I'll be the monster. And then she starts talking about the Chuck's dream, and that's where Stella and Ramon like finally are just like, oh shit, like way to be late to the game, guys. Uh, but so they go running after Chuck. Meanwhile, Chuck was just kind of standing around, you know, being perfect murder bait, and then he goes running off because he's trying to not get caught by anyone who works in the hospital. And he goes onto the roof, and then when he gets off the roof, the orderlies are chasing him, and then like the alarm switches, or the alarm flips on, and it's got like this switch from the classic white hospital lighting to absolute red, which is a little bit extreme, but it works for the story, especially with all the supernatural elements. And so suddenly the entire hospital has become the red room for Chuck, and it's just like, wow, you're fucked, buddy.
Yeah, I definitely thought they did everything almost perfect there. With even the recording, I can guarantee you half the people who are watching the movie who saw it were like, we did not know that wax thing was a thing. I honestly didn't know that was a thing. And I was like, wow, that's really cool to incorporate that little bit of history and stuff in it. And then when you like move on and he gets to the part to where this red room happens, like they did it really, really well because the movie, how the movie was filmed and how the energy and the tension of the movie completely changed when everything went red. I thought it was done amazing.
Yeah, and speaking of that recording, that that kind of recording predates like records and everything, but it also predates like a lot of stuff. Cause I mean, there's much older versions from like ancient times that they've been able to get sound off of. I mean, it's really not anything very clear usually, but those things have been around for a very long time. So I thought that was really cool from a history perspective to see that. And so like the rooms, well, the quote unquote room, all the hallways are now this dark, like scary red. And then you see this monster, the Pale Lady, as she's called in the book, uh, and they pretty much did a one for one recreation of the illustration from the book, which is gruesome on its own, but seeing it, you know, on screen with full like movement and everything is so deeply unsettling. She's got that like shark-like mouth and these big black soulless doll eyes and that weird grin and just like the sort of unnatural shape of her body. It all comes together as a like deeply unpleasant uh, being.
Yeah, the whole scene was so good because when it goes to Chuck every time, you can see just his pure panic and fear going through him, and it kind of made you live that and started to have that panic for him because every time he turned a corner or did anything, she was closer and closer. And like you said, she's this gruesome thing that you just can't get out of your head, and you know it's inevitable that she's going to get you, and it's just like this fear building and building and building in him, and they portray that really well.
The tension in the scene is incredibly well done. Whereas, like, I thought it was lacking in the big toe because I didn't think they had enough of a build. This one they went full on with the build, just ratcheting it up. every time he turns around trying to get away from her, there she is, but now even closer. And every time he turns a corner, there she is down that hallway, closer and closer and closer. And it's just building and building and building and building. It's all coming at him. Uh, but I mean, like, maybe throw a juke, Chuck? Like, I know you're not like a super athletic type, but I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, he definitely could have done something more, but I think he was too panicked at that point to have any senses in
Yeah,
him.
kind of paralyzed by the fear. So then it gets to him, and like it doesn't like slit his throat or like bite off his head or anything. It just hugs him in this gruesome like embrace, and like to me it seems like she'd be like one of the most unpleasant things to hug because it's just like this lumpy body that like I'm betting is like ice cold, just like embracing him. And it's not just a hug, she's physically absorbing him into her. And that was deeply unsettling for me. But I imagine some people with a vor fetish probably got triggered by it.
Yeah, they definitely did. I think the only thing that they could have added to that scene to make it feel more like realistic or something was like Chuck pissing his pants or shitting his pants because of how terrified and like crazy that is.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that, but yeah,
No, yeah,
it wouldn't have been entirely surprising if they had, or if he had. Uh,
yeah,
Yuck, dude. Just ugh. And but I guess maybe they heard it when they were listening to Sarah's recording, but they like Chuck gets absorbed. The camera like turns around, so it's like the exact same spot, just like down the other side of the hallway. And they come out and they're like, he should be right here. But that's not where they left him. I don't know why they would have thought he'd be right there. Like, did that seem odd to you?
um, yeah. That definitely seemed odd because it didn't seem like the same corner that they left him. So, and
Uh-huh.
there's no way they knew that he was running full speed down the hallways and stuff. So I don't feel like they knew
Right.
where he was. They just thought they knew.
So that was a little bit odd, but overall the scene was pretty fantastic. So I won't begrudge them that. Like you could you could say that it was because like they were told by the recording that that's where he was, and they just missed it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So yeah, that's fourth person taken down by this book. So now it's really just uh Ramon and Stella remaining, and they get arrested for I guess trespassing, like being where they're not supposed to be in the hospital.
Yeah, trespassing and like causing a disturbance, stuff like that.
Yeah. So they get thrown into jail. The sheriff, Chief Turner, um, he's willing to let Stella go, but she refuses. She's not leaving Ramon. And this part, well, this uh this whole like draft dodger angle, I was really unhappy with. All the rest of it, um, I was fine with, but I feel like this was part of the reason that they set this in this time period for all this like draft and Nixon stuff. And like we'll get into it uh in the end of the like main story part, but like the chief thinks that he's a coward because he tried to dodge the draft, and he thinks he's a coward because he ran away from the draft because like his brother had just come home. Well, his body had just been returned from Vietnam. Like, yeah, he's got every reason to dodge the draft. Like, but they set it up like he's bad for doing it.
Yeah, and I think I I think they were just trying to convey that that was the attitude during that time for certain people that weren't what that were for the war and everything, and I think they were maybe trying to just convey that attitude rather than make him look good or bad.
Yeah,
I don't
but I
know.
mean, like, they're the ones who put it into the movie.
I felt like because the Nixon thing kept coming up throughout the whole movie as well, in the draft and everything. I felt like that was also the
Mhm.
kind of the only way that they could have kept their parallel story.
Like, a lot of people's attitudes towards Vietnam and every war that's come after has been mainly not positive. I mean, like, after 9/11, a lot more people were willing to go into Iraq, uh, and then there came Afghanistan and, like, everything else we've been doing in the Middle East, and realizing that, like, we were kind of sold the Iraq war on a lie, all this stuff, like, it just felt like a really weird time and place to insert what kind of came off as a, like, I don't think this was the director's intention, but or the writer's intention, but it kind of came off as like a pro Vietnam War angle. It was just, why
Yeah,
would you do that?
I can see that because with what happens at the end as well. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like it was their way of trying to glue both stories together. But I
In
don't
any
know.
case, I think there would have been better ways to execute it, but
Yeah, if even if they took it out of the whole story, I don't think the story would have lacked as well. I think it would have been fun you
right.
just making the chief racist or something like that, and not even bring up the war. You know.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. It seems weird to me, but we'll move on. Uh, so he thinks he's a coward, and therefore, Stella's going to, or no, not Stella. Sarah's going to use that in order to get him. Uh, which, like, it's okay that he has that fear, because it makes sense. Although one of the times they bring up that, like, Stella is, or God, I keep saying that. That Sarah is, like, using their own fears against them. Stella says the line, "You don't read the book reads you." And who thought that was a good idea? Like, that's the most, like, bland cliche thing you could have put there. It's just, why would you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was that's an aspect of bringing it back down to it's a PG-13 movie. It's not super high budget. The writers were just trying to fill in stuff, I guess.
The next story starts, which is one of my favorites from the book, called Me Tai Doti Walker. Since you didn't read the book, like, essentially in the book version, there's a rich man in a town that's got an unbelievably haunted house. Like, it's off by itself. Everyone in town says it's haunted. Um, but he wants to know for himself. So instead of going there himself, he says he'll give, I don't know, I think $1,000 to whoever's willing to spend the night in the haunted house. And everyone in town refuses except for this one kid who says he'll do it. And he takes his dog with him. And the house is unsettling and creepy, but nothing truly horrifying is happening. So he lays down in front of the fireplace to go to sleep, and then he hears off in the woods somebody kind of singing "Me Tai Doti Walker." He's like, "Oh, that's weird. Maybe it's like a hunter. Someone's running with a dog." And his dog starts responding with "Lynchy Kinchy Collie Molly Dingo Dingo," and and there seems to be like kind of a back and forth between the voice off in the woods and this dog. So there's this back and forth between the dog and the voice of me, Doty Walker, Lynchy, Kinchy, Collie, Molly, Dingo, Dingo. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. The kid's trying to get his dog to stop, um, but it keeps responding back and forth, and then they're both staring at the fireplace, and this head of an old man just flops down from the fireplace and rolls out in front of him, and the head looks at him and goes, "Me Tai Doty Walker," and the dog dies, like it just falls over dead, and the rich man goes to the house in the morning, and it's got this line in the book that's like, he looked down at the boy, his hair had turned white, and he couldn't quit screaming. And that's how that story ends. And it's just like, oh. But I thought they did this pretty well in this story. And then they also combined it with their own character, the Jangly Man. So, Mitai Doty Walker, like the name of the story, and it's what the head keeps saying. But then they give the head a body, and that's pretty horrifying.
Yeah, I mean the build. I thought the build up for that scene was really good as well, because it's kind of like the story to what you just said, but without all the like words happening. The dog kind of just
Well, I mean,
built it.
well, no, the dog in the movie is speaking back to it, but I think the dog in the movie is just repeating Mitai Doty Walker. I don't think he's saying Lynchy Kinchy, Collie Molly Dingo Dingo. But the dog's definitely saying something. But I think it's just the Mitai Doty Walker line.
Yeah,
Also, like in the movie, like the sheriff's looking at the book and then he sees the words Mitai Doty Walker, and I couldn't remember, so I had to go and read the story again after the movie. But I couldn't remember exactly what it was. But those words just like stuck in my brain as like a nugget of memory. And so like when I saw those lines, I was just like, oh shit. And the friend I went with like looked over at me but didn't want to like interrupt or anything. So like she like knew something was up, but I couldn't explain what.
yeah. I'm because I didn't get any of those feelings and I'm sad about it. But it's because I
Yeah.
didn't read it. But that's I mean I like when movies elicit that response, especially if you read them as a kid, like the nostalgia, things like that. I think that
Hmm.
if they can do that in a couple of scenes, I think they did well with that. You know.
Hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
when the just in general with that scene, when the head and everything dropped down,
Uh-huh.
that was just so like it was gross and weird and jarring altogether. I thought it was.
Yeah. That the jangly man in the movie is played by a contortionist named Troy James. So like when he's walking with like his head on backwards, like he's on all fours and he's walking, that's actually Troy James underneath a lot of makeup and I think a little bit of CGI polishing on the actual like look, but it actually is him walking upside down with a head on backwards. It's freaky. Like
Hmm.
he's very good at what he does, but what he does looks fucking weird.
Yeah, I mean, shooting that scene to just seeing that as an actor, I would be terrified anyway. It would be really easy to get into that
Yeah.
mindset.
Uh-huh. And I really liked when like I don't think the effects on the body parts were the best. Uh, they kind of looked a bit too CGI in some areas, but uh, but I thought like his actual movements were pretty horrifying. And then when he starts like forcing his body into Ramon's cell, that was pretty gruesome to me.
Oh, definitely. It was very gruesome, and so that whole scene kind of was like the dream scene as well. A lot of build up, like it just the whole thing was built up in suspense, and like I said, I feel like they really tried to key in on that instead of using gore. And
Hmm.
for those two scenes, and with this one, I felt like they did it real well. And
Make him absurdly quick, but I guess that does kind of differentiate him from the Pale Lady and all that. So I'm fine with it, but I I feel like the his like inhuman speed was kind of unnecessary.
um, well, I don't think it was unnecessary. What it made me what it made me feel is it was kind of like a spider or something that you see super gross or weird
Okay.
scurry
Yeah,
across
sure.
the floor, and that's what
Hmm.
it his speed and just the way that he moved kind of made me feel like. So I
Okay.
think maybe
Yeah.
that's what they were going for.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But in any case, it was a pretty effective scene. Um, and it still gave me the vibes of the original story, while also being its own thing. So I thought overall that one was pretty great.
It was definitely solid. I felt like they started with all the stories combined. I felt like they started really well with Harold, and then they kind of they did their
They
like
had kind of a weak middle with the
yeah,
toe and the red spot.
which I feel like with the stories that they picked, they if they this was the best way to do it, because if they would have did the toe later on or the red spot later on or one of those at the beginning and stuff, it wouldn't have
Uh-huh.
grabbed you as well. I felt like Harold got you into it. You were kind of like, okay, what's going to happen next? Then you kind of get the two weaker stories out of the way, and then they hit you with the
Hmm.
dream, and then they hit you with the Walker, the
Metai Doti Walker.
yeah, they hit you with that, and
Hmm.
I feel like they built really well on the stories altogether. I feel like they were
Yeah.
in the appropriate places.
Yeah, I think the way they laid them out in the order they laid them out was a wise decision.
Yeah.
While Ramon's just trying to get away from the jangly man, Stella heads back to the house to try to finish this fight. And this ending's a bit weak to me.
Yeah, there was. So there's two things that I want to say about one's about the movie in general, and the other one's about the ending. So the ending I felt was super weak, and just it didn't with all how all the stories went, with how the suspense went, and how everything kind of built up. There was not one point that I felt there was suspense in the last scene that she wasn't fully going to like get away. I did think that they did where she kind of went into the parallel universe, or like if you've watched Stranger Things, the Upside Down, to where they did
Uh-huh.
that. I thought that was really well. But what I wish they would have done with that scene, I think if they would have added 10 more minutes to this movie and developed the family of, is it Sarah? Sarah's the one that
Cerebellas,
reads.
yeah.
Yeah, if they would have developed the family,
Oh,
because
wait, are you talking about Sarah or Stella?
the one who reads the one who reads the book to the kids and kills them, like who actually
Oh, yeah, that's Sarah.
Sarah. Yeah,
Sarah Bellows.
she. I feel like if they would have built on the Bellows family, because they
Hmm.
were horrific, terrible people for what they were doing to the people in that town, and what they did to
Uh-huh.
this girl, what they did to their own
Right.
sister. Like, they missed a place to capitalize, and I felt like it would have given it a better ending and made it a lot more suspenseful, because she's getting dragged through this house with with all these family members around, and you barely know anything about any of them, and you're like, why should we really care about those characters? And I wanted to
Yeah.
know why to care about those characters, how wicked each one of them was, because in all
Hmm.
honesty, they were terrible, terrible people, and I wanted to know what they all did. And I felt like if they would have taken 10 or 15 more minutes out of in the movie, they could have developed
Hmm.
that, and it would have ended the movie amazingly. I really feel like they missed a
Yeah.
way to capitalize with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. The the whole ending needed something, and I think you're I think you're right to say that like they needed to flesh out that family more. So also how they lift the curse was not on par with like the way the rest of the movie was told, because the way they lift the curse is kind of Disney Channel kind of thing, whereas everything else like had the horrifying aspects and all that stuff. So you feel, or I felt like they needed something a little bit more powerful than just, "Hey Sarah, can you quit being a bitch?"
Yeah, uh, th- th- that really got me, because at the end I was just like, oh, it was that easy. It was that easy to finish this movie, to finish this, lift this curse to where they live. They were just like, oh, just stop being mean. We like
Yeah.
you. We're here for you. We can help you. We're not going to do this anymore. And instead of them actually having to go through some task, some ritual, some way of destroying her, or showing her that they were there for her, rather than her just speaking it, or the week she wrote it down in the book. Oh, I'll write your story. I mean,
I mean,
and
sure, she writes it in blood, but it's still just,
I mean, if they were gonna, they could have made that more, the way that she wrote it in blood, like made it more intense. Did something more with that ending, and then even the way that she, like, Sarah lifts the curse to where she screams at the end or whatever, and it just kind of everything
uh-huh.
goes back to normal. It kind of felt like there was no resolve. There was no. It lacked right there at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And then after they lift the curse, like she and Ramon hug, and then this is one of the worst like epilogues I've ever fucking seen, dude. Uh, you know what I'm talking about?
The Where she talks at the end and talks about, oh, you thought it was that.
Well, just that entire scene, like, get on bus to go to the army to go to Vietnam, which makes it feel like they're saying that he was a coward for not going to that terrible war, like instead of like him finding out that like or him realizing that he's not a coward for like refusing to be part of that or anything or like something. So it came off with that weird pro Vietnam message, and like he's also not helping Sarah or Stella on her, I guess, quest to get back Chuck and Augie.
Yeah,
Uh,
they went through all that, and he doesn't help. Weird.
yeah, and her her story with her dad, I thought was really lacking as well. Like it has this like element of like it could be good, but they just sporadically are just mention like, oh yeah, she's got issues because like her mom abandoned them, so like she thinks everything is her fault or whatever. I I don't know. The whole thing seemed pretty. weak to me.
Yeah, I felt like that, especially with the dad. They do super heart wrenching scene to where she says all that stuff, that she thinks she's gonna die and everything, and then at the end they kind of just are okay with each other. They give each other a smile and stuff, and then it goes to the end of that, and you're just like, oh, okay, he's somehow helping them or something. Uh, I don't know. I can tell you one aspect that I did like about the end. I liked that there was consequences to this book, that they didn't break the curse and everybody was okay. I like that Augie and Chuck were still dead and fuck what his name's Tommy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck that guy. He can stay dead. Nobody cares about him. He was a psychopath shithead. Like, he's okay
Yeah.
to be dead, but like I like that there was consequences. I thought that was done really well, and I guess they want to make a second one, but even if they didn't make a second one and ended it, I like the consequences in it.
Yeah, I am glad that those characters stayed gone, but the like her monologue at the end where she's like Chuck and Augie are still gone, but I know I can bring them back with this book. It's just like so that's sequel bait, isn't it? But I also like that like she's like Chuck and Augie are gone. Doesn't mention shit about Tommy because like you and the audience and everyone, it's just like, yeah, fuck Tommy.
Yeah, I love that. I was just like, yeah, Tommy sucks. It's like nobody cares about him.
Yeah.
No, yeah. They were definitely like setting it up for sequel bait, and I
Hmm.
thought, like you said, her monologue was a little bit weak. She could have, there could have been something more to it. She's supposed to be a really good writer. She's supposed to have this like sense about her to write something very eloquently, very powerful right there at the end, and I didn't feel like what she said was powerful.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Overall, I thought the cast did a pretty good job, but yeah, certain parts like that, it really felt like the writers let them down, uh, as far as like dialogue choices and everything.
Yeah, definitely. King, if you could rate this between a one big toe up or a flaming bag of human feces, what would it be?
Well, neither of those sound very good, but I guess the toe. I thought overall this movie was pretty good introduction to scary movies for a more like teen or maybe younger audience. I mean, it's better than starting with the Thing and Alien when you're 7, but you know, I probably won't watch it again anytime soon. But like if somebody asked me if it was good, I'd say rent it from Redbox or whatever.
Yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It's two big toes up for me, but I am excited for kind of new scary movies or just a new generation to come out and we kind of get away from the Freddy's, the Halloweens, the Friday the 13th, those type of movies, and kind of start making newer scary movies. And I hope this kind of like starts it. I mean, I know it's not like this significant, but I hope we're on a path to where we can start getting some more cult classics to where people want to see, even if they're PG-13 or if they move into like rated R and stuff. Like, I'm excited for that. But thanks for watching, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.